Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown. Joining me is Andrew Meadows. And today we are live again from the man cave, Andrew, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
It's very special, very special. Unfortunately, I feel like today has been a pretty horrible cycle of news pretty much across the board. We had a mass shooting out in Las Vegas that I think the current death toll is over 50, which is heartbreaking to wake up and read something like that. And then Tom Petty, legend in general for rock and roll, but a legend particularly from Gainesville, Florida, which has resonance for me, also passed away today. So it's not been a fun thing to read about.
2017's been pretty shitty. It's been a pretty shitty year.
I feel like we said that last year, to be honest. It just kind of seems like maybe it just gets worse, or maybe it's just always bad. Who knows, really? But
that's why old people are so miserable.
Perhaps that is a good hypothesis. But this isn't necessarily the time or place for that. This is a place for us to crack open a beer.
Talk about movies, Sam.
We got to talk about some movies, Gilly. We're going to talk about some movies and some television shows. Perhaps one called Game of Thrones.
I'm caught up.
That's Samuel Tarly for those listening. It's a very poor Samuel Tarly, I might add, but
I watched all that shit, dude. I'm all caught up.
He did. He's all caught up with Game of Thrones. I was there to witness his live viewing of season 7, episode 7. So we'll get into that later. Our main topic for this week is going to be a movie though, called American Made, starring the cruise missile, and it's pretty good. But we'll talk about it later. Let's begin with our usual cycle of the latest in news for film and television. So starting on the film side of the world, we got a couple posters for Pacific Rim Uprising. So this is, of course, the sequel to Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim, which came out a few years ago. I'm not sure on the exact date on that, but it was kind of one of those movies that, for me, struck a chord. I mean, it's not particularly well written, but it's about giant robots fighting giant monsters, and it fucking absolutely nails that.
That was awesome. So cool.
And it's got, Idris Elba being a badass in it.
Yeah, the robots were badass.
The robots were badass.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this one, there's been a changing of the guard. Del Toro is not involved in this one, at least as far as the directing chair is concerned. This is coming to us from Stephen S. DeKnight, who was the showrunner of all of the Spartacus series on Starz and the first season of Daredevil.
All right.
Which we've talked about.
Pretty cool.
And John Boyega, Finn from Star Wars Force Awakens and the upcoming Last Jedi, is going to be the main character in this one. I believe he's actually going to be related to Idris Elba's character from the first Pacific Rim. And it's also got Scott Eastwood, most famous for being the son of Clint Eastwood.
I'm sure he's got his own resume, sure, right?
Based on what I've seen him in, let's just say there's some nepotism involved, so hopefully he's better here. But these posters look pretty cool. We got some looks at a couple of the new Jaegers, the big robots these guys are piloting, and I for one am pumped about this because this is a movie that really they spent way too much money on and didn't make really much of that money back. So the fact that it's getting a sequel at all is kind of pretty crazy in its own right. But what do you think about this?
I'm pretty excited, man. Like you said, giant robots fighting giant-ass monsters and alternate dimensions and all sorts of crazy shit. It's pretty cool. I was just looking up the director of cinematography for the movie, the same guy that's shooting it, shot Star Wars The Force Awakens, which is pretty cool. But, just the content's fun. You know what I mean? It's a fun movie.
Yeah, and I expect very much more of the same from what we got in the first one. If it ends up being a kind of a better overall experience in terms of being better written and stuff like that, that's just a benefit. But this is one of those movies where I'm ready to check my brain at the door and show up for Jaegers versus Kaiju. Like that's all I need, and I'll be happy. We should be getting a trailer for this shortly. So New York Comic-Con is actually coming up this weekend. This upcoming Friday is.
I got tickets.
The 6th. Oh, you get tickets to New York Comic Con, huh?
Yeah, I got tickets. I'm gonna go.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll have to let me know what it is. You have to tell me all about the Pacific Rim trailer and maybe a couple other things we'll mention in this cycle of news as well.
That would be a pretty good Comic Con to go to, though.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a haul from us, but
and Charlie Day's back in the game again.
Charlie Day's back.
Yeah, I'm in. Charlie Day's pretty cool. I like Charlie Day.
Yep. Well, that's pretty cool. Like I said, we should get a trailer for that hopefully this weekend, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about that when it does come out, assuming, of course, it gets released to the public they're sometimes secretive with these con things, but I think for something like this,
I think this one got enough publicity to where they'll release it.
yeah, you need the marketing for this. So I'm sure they're dropping a pretty penny on this one too, so they're going to want to recoup any cost they can, so they're going to need maximum exposure. So that's cool. We'll look forward to that.
Speaking of promotions, did you see the Blade Runner Blackout 2022 animated short?
Well, I've
by
seen it.
Shikario Wannabe?
I believe his name is Shinichiro Watanabe, but you can call him what you like. He might not mind.
It's pretty cool, though. It's good anime.
It was pretty cool. I think this was probably my favorite of the 3 shorts that we got. The other 2, of course, were live action.
And they were much shorter.
Yeah, we're shorter. This one was about 15 minutes or so with credits, I guess. But yeah, I mean, this one kind of jumped all over the place a little bit in terms of the material that it covered. But I felt it's probably understandable why they would choose the anime one to be the one that handles a bunch of kind of material like this. The other ones are kind of limited to I guess, really one location and pretty minimalistic in terms of action and set pieces and stuff like that. I mean, we saw Dave Bautista kicking some ass in the second one, but nothing quite compared to the level of ass kicking that we see in this one, courtesy of some replicants.
Yeah. There's a giant bomb that went off.
Giant bomb. Mm-hmm.
You know, that would have been difficult to provide in a short. It would have been expensive.
And this one, it kind of seems like perhaps the history that the groundwork that this one is setting might kind of tie in pretty heavily into the movie. Perhaps.
Sure. I know that they reference the blackout in the first short.
Okay,
they're talking about the prohibition of the replicants.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, this one is talking about how I guess the Wallace Corporation is the one that's now responsible for manufacturing the replicants, and Jared Leto is playing Nyander Wallace.
It'd be cool to go back and watch them in chronological order.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, Blade Runner 2049 is right around the corner. We're going to be covering it next week, of course. But my plan, personally, is
watch all the Blade Runners.
Watch all of them. First one, watch the shorts all again, and then boom, head right to the theater. And
Did you finish reading the short?
I have not. I'm only halfway through it, but it's still a short book, and I'll be on an airplane tomorrow and at an airport for most of the day, so
you'll probably finish it.
I feel confident I can get it finished before I even rewatch the first Blade Runner. So yeah, we're looking forward to Blade Runner, that's for sure.
I want your full in-depth report on this teaser trailer from Alex Garland for Annihilation. I haven't watched it yet, so.
Well, I thought you were supposed to watch it before we started recording.
Yeah, well, I didn't do my homework.
All right,
man.
well, I guess it's a solo act right now. Yeah, so this is coming to us from Alex Garland, who directed Ex Machina, which we talked about last week when we were talking about Alicia Vikander and Tomb Raider. And it's got a great cast. Natalie Portman's the lead. It's also got Gina Rodriguez from Jane the Virgin, Tessa Thompson from Creed and the upcoming Thor Ragnarok, and then got Oscar Isaac in it. So
I'm all in.
I don't know why you haven't watched the trailer yet, of all people. I mean, it looks very weird, very out there, but it looks like, I mean, Ex Machina was, I think, relatively reserved in terms of kind of the scope that it covered. I mean, it was very contained architecture that it took place in, whereas this kind of seems to explore very weird different places. I really am not 100% sure about what it really is about. I know it's based on a book that seemed to be pretty well received.
By Jeff Vandermeer.
Jeff Vandermeer, yeah. I haven't read it. I mean, honestly, prior to the trailer being released, I'd never actually heard of it, but it's got some super cool, trippy visuals in it. Natalie Portman is great when she's directed, i.e. when she's not in Star Wars and when she's in every other movie. Yeah, this looks cool. I would recommend that you check out the trailer. I don't really want to, I don't need to have a soliloquy over here about a trailer that you don't know what I'm talking about. So it's good stuff. I would recommend that you and our listeners check it out because I think it looks very interesting. And it's coming out in February, so it's
right around the corner.
Yeah, it is. It is close. And I mean, Alex Garland, I'm not 100% sure what he's done besides Ex Machina off the top of my head, but Ex Machina is enough for me to poke my head in anything that he touches because that is a great film.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. But he did do the screenplay on Dread, which was equally awesome.
There you go. Like as if you need more reason.
And 28 Days Later. And Sunshine. He's pretty loaded, man. Kind
of sounds like he knows what he's doing. So yeah, that looks cool. Now I'm gonna swing this back to something we talked about last week, and that is
yeah.
Got a little too high pitched at the end there. Couldn't quite keep it as low as I wanted. Yeah, Terminator 6. So we talked about Linda Hamilton coming back for this, and you were kind of just like, why?
Yeah.
So I guess the scoop on this, and I guess we even talked about this even further back, and one of our earlier episodes is that they were possibly talking about, well, we're going to explore why Arnold is the model for the T-800. I think that's out. I think it's fair to say that that's out at this point. I think what's happening with this one, and this is coming from the horse's mouth, James Cameron, who's on the record saying that this is going to be a continuation of the story from Terminator 1 and 2. And
don't give a shit about
everything that happened in 3, 4, and 5. If we were to suggest that even those movies existed, which I'm not confident that they do, they were just a bad dream or an alternate timeline, perhaps, which she says is permissible in their multiverse. And it is a time travel movie. So, yeah, so that's kind of the scoop. From that, we can deduce that Linda Hamilton is going to be returning as an aged Sarah Connor, which I think probably alleviates
definitely a lot
your
more
concerns.
Appropriate,
Right. So I presumably they're not going to really de-age Arnold as well. He'll kind of just be looking like an older Terminator.
Although he fucking melted in the fucking fire.
He's gonna be involved one way or another, even if it doesn't make sense. He's gonna show up. So
time travel movie, man.
Yeah, it doesn't have to make sense. In fact, when you try to make it make more sense, it almost seems like you make it make less sense. I say Looper is probably my favorite approach to time travel, where its literal approach to time travel is don't worry about it.
That's it.
Because they know it doesn't make sense. There was no point in trying to make you understand. So, last bit of movie news is it's probably worth mentioning, of course, that it has crossed the $500 million worldwide milestone in terms of box office grosses, which means that it is now officially the highest grossing horror film of all time, which is a pretty big deal. It was kind of a foregone conclusion that it would get to this point.
I miscalled it last week.
Yeah, you had mentioned it to me last week as something that we could talk about. I was like, well, it's broken some records, but it hasn't quite broken the big one. It's broken the big one now. So it's past The Exorcist, which I guess it had a 44-year record of the highest grossing horror film at $441 million, and now it has...
That obviously included inflation, right?
For The Exorcist, no.
Holy shit.
No, I mean, Exorcist made $441 million back in the day.
That's incredible.
44 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
It's understandable why that record stood for as long as it did, and I'd say well-deserved, because...
It's a pretty incredible movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is awesome. I know I think I talked about it last week that I saw it again, and it just really enhanced the experience for me when I saw it again. I think that's always a good sign. I mean, I like to watch movies multiple times, and typically I find that I get the most out of my viewing experience probably the second or third time around, and that's assuming, of course, that I liked it. I mean, if it's a shit film, I'm not going to like it more the second time through. It's just going to be probably an even more miserable experience. But if it's something that I liked, I find that I'll pull different things out of it or catch things that I didn't quite catch the first time around, and I always find that to be an enjoyable experience for me. And sometimes it's just a matter of being able to process it. I mean, the first time I watched Star Wars Force Awakens, it was just like, I'm crying during the the opening crawl because my brain can't process that Star Wars is really properly back. And yeah, I guess it hadn't been that long since Episode 3, but it really kind of revved that marketing machine up and hit me right in the feels right off the bat. So, speaking of things involving stars, Star Trek Discovery had its premiere. I guess it was sort of a double episode premiere about a week ago. The first episode aired on CBS, and then they immediately had the second episode available to stream through the CBS All Access app, which is the only way to watch on any of the episodes past episode 1.
Did you do it?
I admittedly have not watched any of Star Trek Discovery. I was curious about it because I wouldn't really consider myself a Trekkie.
Right.
I've never really watched any of the other shows that they've produced in the past, aside from episodes here and there and just passing familiarity with characters and stuff like that. And I guess I've watched the Abrams films and Justin Lin's continuation of that with Star Trek Beyond. And for better or worse, I've enjoyed most of those 3 more recent iterations of Star Trek, but in terms of a TV show, I've never really quite gotten into it at all.
What I understand, too, those are a good departure from what Star Trek...
Yeah. I mean, I've always said that those were the perfect audition for JJ to direct Star Wars, because it seemed like he was making a Star Wars movie that was just called Star Trek, in terms of kind of, how action-packed it was and stuff like that. I think it kind of got away from the cerebral nature that a lot of the TV shows really kind of strive for. And to be fair, it's a big budget movie, whereas, a lot of the Star Trek shows aren't exactly quite in the same vein. But I think that this new show is. I think that this new show, I mean, I know they've poured a lot of money into this thing, and it's actually reviewed pretty well, which is kind of what I was skeptical about, is because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was going to be anything that would be good, and that's probably the most important thing to worry about when you're making a TV show. And I think it's something that it does appeal to me, so it's something that I do want to check out. And so this live premiere of the first episode got almost 10 million viewers, which seems like a pretty impressive number.
Pretty strong, yeah.
So I guess the question now is, can they retain that viewership with people on this streaming app? Because I mean, this is the $1 million question, I think, for every company is really kind of poking their head into this, because if this platform really kind of takes off in the way that I think CBS, I'm sure, wants it to, it kind of changes the mold of television, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it does.
To be fair, that's kind of worrisome, I would say.
Right, because it makes it pretty inconvenient to watch all your shit if you have to subscribe to 9 different networks, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because where I'm at with this right now is like the reviews have me interested. Just the general concept of it had me interested anyway, but I'm apprehensive because I don't want to drop however much money per month to watch something, and when it's all done, I can I'll just subscribe to the app then,
go buy the Blu-ray,
use their week-long trial, or buy the Blu-ray. Right. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to give it a go. I don't know when that'll happen though. Like I said, but if it maintains the quality, maybe they'll get me hooked sooner rather than later. So
see where it goes.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off for him.
John Hamm.
Well, okay, so there's a piece of news in here that I don't think really has a whole lot of meaning to either of us, but the reason I included this is because I included the Annihilation trailer, which included Oscar Isaac, and I thought in the interest of fairness, since Oscar Isaac is your man crush, I ought to include a piece of news about my man crush, who is John Hamm. I love me some John Hamm. Not afraid to admit it at all. I would say most famously in general, he's Don Draper from Mad Men, which is my personal favorite television show of all time. And so he's going to be joining a television adaptation of Neil Gaiman's Good Omens, which is a novel that I guess he co-wrote with the recently deceased Terry Pratchett, who, funny story, in his will said that any of his unfinished works were to be destroyed by way of a steamroller. It just got totally crushed. I guess there's like a hard drive that has all of his works on it, and like it was literally part of his will that they must get crushed by this steamroller, and they did it.
Holy shit!
Yeah, which it's commendable and hilarious. It's
pretty cool.
So well played. But back to Good Omens. So this already has Michael Sheen in it and David Tennant. So it's got a ridiculous cast to begin with, and then you throw John Hamm in there. Like, I don't know anything about this, but I'm interested based on the cast alone. And of course, Neil Gaiman is he's a very talented author. So again, I just wanted to shout this out because of the great John Hamm. I guess this is coming out in 2019 to Amazon Prime. So yet another one on the streaming service, but at least it's a streaming service I already have.
That's it.
Makes it slightly more.
There's a lot of value to the Amazon package.
Bearable, sure. So that could be quite a show. I think I would say just again based on the cast alone, I'm well in the bag for it. So
Neil Gaiman's pretty he's pretty cool. I like his stuff.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And speaking of things that, well, I guess both of us now are well in the bag for is Game of Thrones. Yeah. So Game of Thrones, they've released the list of directors that are going to be directing season 8. The final season of Game of Thrones until we get 50 other spinoffs about it. But, this is the last season of Game of Thrones proper. So there's only going to be 3 directors across the total of the 6 episodes they're going to be doing for this final season. I think probably the most exciting name in this bunch for me is Miguel Sapochnik, who did the Battle of the Bastards and The Winds of Winter. So
both.
Yeah, I mean, that's
pretty incredible episodes.
Exactly. That's a hell of a stretch, a couple episodes there to really kind of have in your back pocket. David Nutter is going to be handling at least one as well. He's also had some previous experience on Game of Thrones.
And then the showrunners are directing the final episodes.
Yep. And then exactly, David Benioff, D.B. Weiss will be handling the reins on the last episode of Game of Thrones. So It's not too far off. It's further off than I think either of us would like it to be, of course. But I think we'll probably expect this in, 2019?
That's what it's looking like.
Yeah, so unfortunately we've got a year-plus run to wait for Game of Thrones. But, I mean, there's still plenty to cover, and I'm sure plenty of shocking surprises in store for us. So, all right, our last bit of news for the week. Again, talking about New York Comic-Con coming up this weekend. Just ahead of the show, we got a few posters that were released, courtesy of Marvel, for the upcoming Season 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then the upcoming Season 2 of Jessica Jones, and then the upcoming seasons of new television shows, Cloak and Dagger and The Runaways. So I think all the art in these look really awesome. I don't know how familiar are you with anything that's not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Jessica Jones?
I have read a little bit about Cloak and Dagger. I don't know anything about Runaways.
All right, so I mean, these are kind of couple more oddball properties. I mean, Marvel's kind of feeling a little bit more comfortable in their britches enough to, start making shows and
they're spreading
and
the
movies.
butter too across networks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is kind of an out there thing. Cloak and Dagger, they're pretty cool characters. I mean, she can summon like light daggers basically, and Cloak has the ability to basically envelop people in darkness. So they're kind of oddball characters, and they're kind of going for a much younger approach with these two. I think it's airing on Freeform. You kind of mentioned how they're kind of spreading it across the networks, and Freeform, for those who aren't aware, is basically ABC Family that's been renamed. So that's kind of a warning sign, I feel. But they did release a trailer for this a while back. I don't know if you've seen that. And actually it looks pretty solid. So I think it looks cool, and the art, the key art here for this poster, I think is actually really cool too.
Yeah.
So
expect some.
I'm expecting this to be pretty young adult oriented in terms of kind of its tone and expected audience. But
talking about love triangle.
But I love me some Riverdale, man. I'm all about that shit sometimes. So this might be right up my alley. Who knows?
Now tell me about the Runaways though.
Yeah, the Runaways are cool. So this is coming to Hulu. As a Hulu original show, and this is right around the corner. This is coming out in November. Cloak and Dagger is next year sometime, probably early next year, since we had a trailer a while back. I think it's probably been done filming, but Runaways is November of this year, and basically it's kind of a very cool concept. Basically, it's kind of about a series of kids who they kind of find out that their parents are all supervillains, so they kind of run away, and it's kind of just about their kind of adventures as they kind of rebel against their parents because supervillains are not good. It's not good to have them around. So I don't know if you can see in this key art, but that is in fact a raptor that is part of the Runaways.
That's a raptor?
And that raptor is named Old Lace, which is pretty cool.
It looks like they've also got some magic going on too.
Yeah, there's some shenanigans going on with this. So there's a staff that appears in the movie Doctor Strange that is related to the Runaways. No, I don't think there's any actual discernible connection between the movie and the TV show. Marvel's kind of been keeping those worlds separate, even though they're technically supposed to be this part of the same world. So, we'll kind of, I think this is pretty much kind of doing its own thing, but...
do you know enough about the Runaways to talk about what villains are their parents?
I think that, for the most part, they're either original or something at least that I'm not overly familiar with. Right. I mean, I kind of know the general concept of the Runaways. I think Brian K. Vaughan was the writer of the original comic book for the Runaways, which I think was pretty recent in the scheme of things. And I seem to recall it getting pretty well received, but it's something that I haven't actually sat down and read for. But I enjoy the general concept of this.
Yeah, sounds fun.
And I think that, I know you watched at least some of The Handmaid's Tale, and I feel like that speaks well for Hulu's quality, so I feel like that bodes well for this. It's kind of weird to think about, but it's like it's when you think about something that's going to be on HBO. Well, you think the production values are going to be pretty good, right? So so I kind of feel like Hulu's kind of stepping up their game in terms of throwing some big bucks down on these TV shows. So I think this one could be pretty cool, and I really like the art that they've kind of put out for this. So,
American Made, man. What'd you think?
I think this is the greatest country we ever lived in, isn't it? I probably bungled the line, but forgive me. It's been a day since I watched it. Okay. American Made, man. This was I gotta say, I was actually pretty interested in this one. This is coming to us from director Doug Liman, who did Edge of Tomorrow.
You mean not watch, review, repeat.
That's us.
Live, die, repeat.
Live, die, repeat. I don't mean that because it's not called that movie, even if everyone likes to pretend it is. But yes,
that's what it says.
That is the one I'm referring to. But yes, so it reunites, director and star from Edge of Tomorrow in the form of Doug Liman and Tom Cruise, aka the Cruise Missile.
I feel like the Cruise Missile played almost like pre badass Cruise Missile from Live, Die, Repeat. You know what I mean? Just very charismatic.
Yeah, I could see that. I agree. Kind of when he's in his
just ignorant,
his marketing persona when he's on TV, being exactly. A TV personality in Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, I could definitely see that before we kind of see the true nature of his character. Obviously, no, I can definitely see that comparison being made. That's fair. So I guess this movie is about. It's about Tom Cruise. There's not a whole lot to it other than that. Just it's Tom Cruise playing a guy named Barry Seal who is a pilot, and then he finds himself working for the CIA, and then he finds himself working for the Medellin cartel in Colombia, and some shenanigans ensue from that point, and that's kind of putting it mildly. So, I think probably the one takeaway for this movie for me is that Tom Cruise is fucking excellent in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, this is Tom Cruise, showing up for it. And you didn't see The Mummy. I saw The Mummy. And it's not that he was bad in The Mummy, but I just find that that's your standard fare Tom Cruise movie, and he's good at what he does there, but he's not bringing anything else to the table. Whereas when he's kind of doing something like this, and he's doing something like that in Edge of Tomorrow as well, he's bringing something different to the table, and he's really elevating, I think, the role.
I couldn't imagine anybody else playing the role.
Exactly. Tom Cruise just completely owns this character, and it's, I guess, kind of for good and for bad, because he makes this character so compelling, and this character does some pretty shit things in the scheme of things within this movie, and it kind of leaves you in a quandary where you're like, am I supposed to be rooting for this guy or not? And he has such an affable, easy presence to him that you do kind of root for him,
Sure.
It's kind of weird to sit back and think about what's happening and what you're watching, and then you're like, I'm kind of on board with this.
This feels so right. And that's what he conveys. He conveys that feeling of it feels so good. We're on top of the world.
Yeah, he's just a happy-go-lucky guy. He's like, someone calls me, they ask me to do something. All right, I'm in, baby.
I'm the gringo who delivers.
I'm the gringo who delivers. Exactly. That is exactly it. So,
Doomhall Gleeson is pretty on point too.
I believe you mean Donald Gleeson. But...
Donald Gleeson?
Donald?
No, Doomhall.
Donald?
I add an extra O in his name, and it makes him Doomhall.
Doomhall? Are you saying he's going to play Dr. Doom soon? Are you saying that he's well named for the part?
I'm going to keep it a running gag.
All right, Doomhall. Doomhall? I don't. You already lost me.
Doomhall.
Doomhall Gleeson is General Hux in The Last Jedi. Yeah. Okay. So yes. Let's get this back on track. Donald Gleeson, also known as Doomhall Gleeson, for one person in the world at least. Yeah, he's great in this. He plays, I guess, his CIA handler, and I gotta say, I really like me some Donald Gleeson. We talked about Ex Machina. He's great in that, and he's just an actor for me that anytime I see him pop up in a movie, I'm just like, fuck yeah, that guy's in this movie.
I want to go see it. Yeah.
I just have that instant reaction.
In recent memory, I can think of 3 movies he's been in: Ex Machina, and Star Wars, and this movie. And each role is drastically different than the other.
Actually, you want to know another movie he was in that we just watched recently? Can you rack your brain and figure out which one it was? We did an episode on it.
We did an episode on it? I can't remember.
Mother.
He was in Mother, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And once again, completely different character.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And every role is on point. I mean, dude's really good. In this one, he was charismatic as well. He was very just on top of the world, and they kind of complemented each other in their own way.
Yeah, they had a fun dynamic. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, my big takeaway from this movie, and admittedly, I really don't have a ton to talk about for this movie. And I don't think that's an indictment of the movie. I just think that, it sets out to achieve something, and I think it does it pretty well. And it doesn't really offer much to the table beyond that.
Is it wrong to call it a biopic? I feel like it's a biopic.
It is more or less. Yeah, I mean, it is a biographical film about a real life figure, Barry Seal.
And it just tells them about that brief what makes that person a memorable person in history, you know what I mean? So it covers those adventures, and then it's the story, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much it. And I'd say, like I said, I think that in terms of the pacing of the movie, that works to its advantage and to its disadvantage, I would say. I think it works to its advantage because it does not waste any time getting from point to point. I mean, it literally...
Bullet points.
This year,
boom, boom,
this
boom.
happened.
Right. Big
the
events.
next year, this happened. Boom, exactly. And so I think from that respect, I mean, I was engaged the whole movie, personally.
Absolutely.
Because there's always something going on, and it's either entertaining or just outlandish, not in a bad way, but it's just, there's always something to kind of keep you hooked in there. And of course, Cruise is magnetic.
And that's another thing too.
Sequences.
Even though it hit those bullet points and moved on to the next one without pause, you still got character development. You still got attached to everybody. I mean, it did a good job of doing what it set out to do. It's a good movie.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part. I mean, I'd say probably the only point that I would disagree is that I think that characters like his wife kind of got shortchanged by the nature of the pacing of the movie, in the sense that it kind of jumps from piece to piece to piece. We really don't get a good grasp on kind of her side of the story. And it's not, I think it's trying to tell a specific story, and that specific story really isn't about her per se.
No. And that
so
kind of goes, that feeds into Tom Cruise's character.
Right. He's not concerned with that. He's got other shit to worry about. Yeah, I mean, and that's absolutely fair. It's
a Breaking Bad kind of thing. You know what I mean?
There's just a lot of bit players in this that I kind of feel like kind of come in and out of the story as kind of necessary, and I think that's just largely due to the framing story of it. Kind of taking place over many span of years.
Right.
Whereas it, instead of being a very kind of self-contained story where you can have the time to sit down and understand and kind of meet these characters. So I think that's just the way it's structured. So I think it works for it and against it in those regards. But I'd say overall, I'd say it's probably
it's a benefit because I think it helps frame the character.
Yeah,
Tom Cruise is a selfish kind of person.
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
You know what I mean? So it kind of helps. You develop perspective on him. But the movie had a ton of style. The way it was shot. I really enjoyed the intro credits. The with the production houses and everything.
Yeah, it kind of flipped back to like the retro versions of the logos. Yeah, I mean, when you get little flourishes like that, you kind of know right off the bat. It's like, okay, all right, we're in for something different here.
And as the movie progresses, there's these there's text that comes across the screen that labels the year. And then you find out that those are, labels and videotapes and stuff. And I thought that was neat. They incorporate it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool movie.
Yeah, I agree. Cool movie. I'd say very similar tone and feel to The Wolf of Wall Street.
Didn't see it.
Okay. I mean, that's Leonardo DiCaprio as Jordan Belfort, who's kind of this Wall Street guy who starts doing a bunch of illegal shit, partying it up, and in some ways the movie it's not necessarily glamorizing him, but it does kind of have that same feel where you're like,
why wouldn't I like that guy?
Like, this guy's awesome. Like, this guy's doing great, even though he's cheating on his wife and doing drugs and just doing a bunch of generally illegal shit through his business that's making him boatloads of money.
It's the same thing with Breaking Bad, though. You love to hate the character. You know what I mean? And I think Tom Cruise isn't. Yeah, I mean, maybe he is shitty, I guess, but. There's not a whole lot.
He's definitely shitty.
There's not a lot there to make you hate him, though. You know what I mean?
Like I said, I mean, his personality it runs contra to kind of the actions that he's doing.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
he's smuggling drugs for a Colombian cartel. Not a good idea. I mean, I guess even when he's acting on behalf of the American government, you kind of take a look at the real life history of kind of what happened after that with the Iran-Contra affair.
Right.
Not a good move. So, yeah, I mean, there's kind of different shades, I guess, of morality to the story. But like I said, it frames it in a way where you're like, this is he seems like a cool dude. I'd have a beer with this dude.
Yeah.
Even though he's just kind of generally an asshole.
And that's the thing too, though. You know what? Like I told you when we walked out of the movie theater. I think he's more of a yes man than he is anything else. Yes, he can make money doing these things. Yes, he does make a lot of money doing these things. You know what I mean? He does it for himself because he makes him feel good. But on the same coin, he's never presented an option to really say no. These people, I mean, if you were to say no, you know what I mean? He'd end up in jail. Or he'd end up killed, or anything else, you know what I mean? So he's like, fuck it, I'll take advantage of the situation, I'll do it. Fine.
Right.
You know? It's an interesting thing. It's done with a lot of style, and it's done with a lot of flair. There's really no spoilers.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and mark this right now as full spoilers for American Made, but, so yeah, I mean, I think that, there's really not anything too spoilerish that we really need to dive into a whole lot with this movie. I think we've kind of covered our bases with it. He dies at the end.
He does.
But, it's like, it was one of those things. It was...
That ending, when he does die, it was actually done really well, I thought. I thought it was very good. Stylish.
It was stylish. Like I said, again, I think the one thing that... And again, I don't know if it's fair to hold it as a fault to the movie, but, he dies, and then we don't really get any sort of real reaction to that happening from the perspective of the characters that we've kind of at least seen. His wife just, the next time we see her, she's back working somewhere else, and
it's just the point, though, right?
Right.
How involved was he with everybody else except himself?
Yeah. Again, I guess that's fair. I mean, that's definitely a fair point. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it tells a story that it wants to tell, and it does it with style and panache that really kind of makes the whole experience gel overall. Doing hard over there, Cap?
Yeah, doing good.
So, I out of curiosity, I did kind of look up after the fact how historically accurate the movie was to the kind of the true story. And on the whole, it gets kind of the broad strokes, I think, of his life right. I kind of got the general impression that he was much more of an asshole and less charismatic than I think what they kind of made him out to be with Tom Cruise in this one. But I'd also kind of seen some quotes from the director, Doug Liman, how he was kind of just like, yeah, we weren't really too concerned about that. We were concerned about making a movie. We took inspiration from these things that did happen, but we weren't trying to make a true historical document. But I think kind of certain details of it were pretty similar. I mean, the way he died was true to, right in front of the Salvation Army. That was exactly as what happened in real life. Damn. They actually caught the 3 guys that were hired to kill him by the Colombian cartel. And there's a couple other things that I don't recall off the top of my head, but there's just like little obviously like big story beats that they...
Was he rooted out by the White House?
Rooted out?
Like was he put on national television in that sort of fashion?
Sort of. I think what happened is... So he did become an informant for the White House to try to get the guys involved with the Colombian cartel. But I think what happened is that kind of the intel that he gathered ended up leaking out of the White House and got published by the press instead of kind of being published by the White House. Man. So he was kind of under the public eye as a result of that. Obviously, the cartel caught on to the fact that he'd betrayed them and kind of sold them out. So... But like I said, he was in it for himself. Any opportunity he could get to weed his way out of a situation, he'd take it. So, yeah. Did
you watch it again in theaters?
I wouldn't watch it again in theaters, but I'm glad that I did see it in theaters.
Yeah.
And so from that respect, I would personally recommend seeing it in theaters. I mean, we obviously took advantage of our movie pass, and I think this is a perfect movie pass movie.
That is a perfect movie pass.
I mean,
movie.
it's a great experience. It's a good movie. I don't think it's anything groundbreaking.
No,
but it's the good movie that has an excellent charismatic lead in it in the form of Tom Cruise. It has enough style to the direction and kind of how it tells its story that I think it really does a good job of what it tries to do, and it keeps you engaged. So for me, I mean, I think even if you were going to pop a few bucks down on it, I mean, especially when we're getting to the time of the year where it's kind of just like, I don't know. I think it's worth your time in the theater, personally. I think it's a good enough movie that I'd feel comfortable recommending anyone see it in the theater. So where you kind of land on that?
I think I really enjoyed the movie. I think that if Joe Blow asked me how the movie was, I'd tell him it's a really good movie. You know what I mean? I think I thoroughly enjoyed it. Usually I don't go and see... I don't see these kind of movies in theaters very often. You know what I mean? And I don't know what I mean by these kind of movies. I don't know how to kind of frame that for anybody.
Well, it's not your typical blockbuster action or
like
anything like
super
that.
over the top stylish drama or anything else. It's just a very run of the mill. It's a run of the mill.
I mean, clearly people agree with you. I don't even think it got first place for the weekend that it just came out.
Right. And I don't think it set out to be either. You know what I mean? It's just they had a story and they wanted to tell it. You know what I mean? Now with that being said, if you got a movie pass, go see it. If you got nothing to do on a Friday, go see it. If you catch yourself going out on a dinner date or something like that and want to go catch a movie, it's a good movie to go catch. And I don't think that there's a whole lot else out right now, so if you want to go catch a movie, go catch it. So it's a good movie and it's worth seeing, that's for sure. I'm glad I saw it in theaters, I guess. So, I mean, in that sense that I would say I recommend going to see it in theaters, I suppose. At the same time, if you don't catch it in theaters, don't kick yourself and pick it up on Blu-ray.
Yeah, well, it's definitely worth watching.
Yes.
I mean, I agree. I don't think you need to bust down the doors right now. And
yeah.
I demand to see this movie. Like, it's not going to blow your mind off. And it's not going to blow your mind away. It's not going to blow you away. Oh, fuck it. It's good. It's good. I don't know that it's great. But it's well made and it's well cast. It's well shot. It's
well acted.
And it's well worth your time. Whenever you happen to find that time, I suppose.
Watch it. That's a good way to put it. If you find the time to watch it, watch it.
Absolutely. So yeah. Well, I guess that's a little bit briefer than our usual standards for talking about movies, but I feel like that covers it. I don't really know what else to add. So
I really need to kick a dead dog here.
Yeah. So
you've had an exciting weekend this weekend, though.
Yeah, I've been busy. Well, I've been kind of hanging out in your neck of the woods, but I've been spending some time away. You've been busy with work and all, so I went over to the Mega Convention in Tampa Bay, and I had a blast actually. So I ended up getting the 3-day pass for this, and went out all 3 days. I didn't spend all day there every day. I didn't really feel the need to do that, but I really enjoy walking the show floor and kind of getting to check out a lot of artist booths and stuff like that. Meeting people. Of course, I like walking around and looking at a bunch of cool shit that I can buy. I try to be relatively conservative with how much I spend because I know they can get dangerous. We went to Star Wars Celebration. We know that it can get dangerous sometimes in terms of opening up that pocketbook. So I got some cool stuff. I got a little bit of art. Got cool Black Panther sling bag.
Got some ballin' cups.
Got some ballin' cups. I got a Witcher cup. I got an Overwatch cup, and I got a Zelda cup. So yeah, I tried to be relatively conservative, like I said, with how much I spent, but I feel happy with what I did come away with. And probably the biggest, most exciting part of kind of any of these events for me, beyond just walking the show floor, is they always have a lot of celebrity guests that will host panels and stuff like that. So I got a chance to see a lot of really cool panels.
Friday, I went with you to see one.
You did. So Friday night, the panel I went to was the one and only Stan Lee, which was a fantastic experience. I ended up kind of getting in line a couple hours ahead of time because I wanted to snag a great spot, and I was 3 rows deep, and so I was right up and in the action with Stan. So it was mostly a standard panel. Had a host kind of talking to him for a little while, and then they had an audience question and answer session. And Stan Lee's in his 90s right now, so any moment you can get to really kind of see an actual legend like that is absolutely worth taking the time to do so. I actually saw him at the previous MegaCon in Orlando earlier this year and snapped a photo with him, paid some money for it. But again, it's just one of those things. You get a chance to meet or listen to these legends, like it's 100% worth taking. So that was a great time. And then old Kevin Smith crashed the party towards the end and had this big auction for a bunch of Stan Lee swag, memorabilia, and an opportunity to go to like the Stan Lee Comic-Con out in Los Angeles, which way too expensive for my blood, but it was a good old time. And then you joined me for an actual live podcast recording of Jay and Silent Bob Get Old with Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was
probably the most entertaining panel I've ever been on, or not been on, but been in or watched, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean it was hilarious. I think Kevin Smith particularly is kind of an acquired taste of humor. I mean, I don't know Heddle Movies for everyone.
Same thing with Muse. Muse is
well, I say they're kind of a package deal, certainly, in terms of kind of when they're doing that podcast of theirs. So, but it was my face hurt from laughing.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
When we kind of walked away from that, and it was a good 2 hours long, if not more.
I think it was closer to 2.5.
Yeah. So I mean, it was it started about 9:30, got out there probably closer to midnight. So
yeah, it was definitely a meaty thing, but I mean, I never once did I catch myself.
All right, get on with the show, you dickheads.
That's it. It was definitely very awesome. If you get a chance to see those guys live, go watch them because they're pretty great.
Yeah, and Kevin Smith does a few podcasts, so even if you don't get to see him with Muse, I think that he's worth seeing. He's a very charismatic storyteller. I think. You know, he's got a story for everything, and he kind of always has this Kevin Smith brand of humor that he tags along with it. But for me, it's something that I really enjoy just listening to the man just talk about some random shit. I can't say that I've liked all his movies necessarily.
Right.
I think for like the View Askew universe, Clerks and Mallrats and Dogma and all those, I think those are all great. But he's kind of gotten weird with his most recent ones.
Well, I kind of I like
Tusk.
Yeah, Tusk was pretty great.
Yeah, Tusk was an interesting movie.
That was pretty good.
Yoga Hosers was less of an interesting movie, but I respect the man for just saying fuck it.
Let's make a goddamn movie. That's what he said.
Well, I think he tried being kind of a director for hire, and then he did Cop Out with Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan, which was a huge flaming pile of shit. And I think he kind of just got fed up a lot with the studio process and said, you know what, I don't need to do this. I'll just make the movies I want to make. And then, he got like super invested in the Flash TV show, and then he ended up working his way to being a director on a few episodes of both Flash and Supergirl over the past couple of years. And so that's good stuff. Other panels, I saw John Barrowman of CW fame, mostly on Arrow, as Malcolm Merlin. Also, of course, was Captain Jack Harkness on Doctor Who and Torchwood for fans of those shows. What an absolutely entertaining panel that man put on.
Yeah.
He's a very flamboyant man in terms of his personality. He came out on the stage in a TARDIS onesie and high heels. But he's a riot to listen to. Same thing. I mean, very different style of humor than someone like Kevin Smith brings to the table, but certain people are just born with that gift to really kind of be a showman.
Is that charisma, man?
And John Barrowman has that in spades. So that was awesome. That was the only panel I got to check out on Saturday, and then Sunday I caught a couple other panels. One with Katie Cassidy, also from Arrow. She plays Laurel Lance, the Black Canary, and now the Black Siren on Arrow. And that was a lot of fun too, actually. It was mostly just a Q&A session, but I got a lot of value out of that. And then the last panel we saw was with Gaten Matazzaro and Caleb McLaughlin, who played Dustin and Lucas on Stranger Things. It's fun to see those. You can tell that they're friends.
That's
like,
cool.
That's what I like, is seeing some real proper camaraderie amongst, especially kids like that. I feel like it's probably natural for them to kind of gravitate towards kind of being friends with each other when you spend as much time filming a show like Stranger Things as you do. So yeah, that was awesome to see. So that's kind of been my weekend in a nutshell. And then and other things that I happened to catch this past week, kind of before the weekend, I watched King Arthur: Legend of the Sword from director Guy Ritchie.
Tell me about it.
I'll tell you what, I didn't hate it.
You didn't hate it?
And I thought I would. I thought it was just going to be a steaming pile of shit, and wasn't good.
Was it Guy Ritchie, though? Could you tell?
It was. It was very Guy Ritchie. I was surprised by how Guy Ritchie it was, because it seemed like an odd pick. I think he actually decided to do this over doing a Sherlock Holmes 3. Which I was just kind of like, well, it seems like a boneheaded decision. And financially speaking, it was definitely a boneheaded decision. But it did have a lot of those Guy Ritchie traits that I really didn't expect to kind of be in it. Yeah, exactly. At least for 2 acts. The third act, it kind of just goes off on a weird video game CG cutscene tangent in terms of its action sequences, and it kind of loses the plot a bit. So I think that's kind of where it lost me. I think it's stylish enough prior to that I'm kind of just like, all right, I mean, I can kind of see why people don't like this, but I've seen far worse than I, and I kind of expected it to kind of be in that same mold of, boy, howdy, what in the hell were they thinking when they made this movie? I don't know why they spent as much money on it as they did, because like I said, it kind of really devolves into kind of the DC third act, thing of here's a bunch of smoke and CG monsters and shit, and it's just that times 1,000.
Oh man,
for, like its third act, and it feels out of place.
Right.
And then again, I guess it does start with a bunch of big giant fucking elephants.
Giant big fucking elements are elements, but elephants are pretty cool.
I mean giant elephants. I mean, not just like slightly large, like absolutely
like
massive.
The ones Legolas runs on in Lord of the Rings, like when he's sliding down the toss and doing flips and shit.
I think bigger than that.
Bigger than that.
I think bigger than that. Yeah,
elephants.
Yeah, there's some serious elephants in there. So I don't know. I mean, honestly, if we happened to have been doing the podcast when it came out and we did an episode on it, I still would have been like, probably should wait for Netflix for this one. But having waited for that moment, I'm like, it wasn't that bad. So it kind of fits in that mold perfectly, I feel. And speaking of Netflix, I finished American Vandal, which I believe I talked about last week. So it's only 8 episodes, 30 minutes, so it's pretty easy to kind of crank out, and I did.
Pretty good.
What an absolutely hilariously written show.
All right.
I mean, it is fantastic. It just absolutely nails the kind of feel of like the serial podcast and How to Make a Murderer. I mean, it's a satire / parody of those kind of programs, and it just delivers absolutely. So if anyone in our audience has watched American Vandal, send us a tweet at WRRpod and hashtag Who Drew the Dicks. Let us know what you think. And Andrew, you should watch it because it's hilarious. And
was that an inside joke of Who Drew the Dicks?
Well, in some ways, yes, but the whole show is about who drew the dicks. Yeah, so it's
I gotcha.
It's really good. Like I said, it hit a particular niche for me, I think, because I listened to...
Because you drew dicks?
No, I wasn't the dick drawer in my day. I gotta say, I wasn't a dick drawer in my day, but you say it just nailed so perfectly the style of kind of what it was mocking, and that's something that I've enjoyed and listened to, but I can still take a step back and like, this is good. Like this might be better than the real thing, honestly.
I have to look at it. I might watch it this week.
So
it sounds short and concise. So
it is. Yeah, it's easy to get through. I
gotta watch a show now that I'm finished with Game of Thrones. So
it's a good one to fill the time. Just kind of last thing for me before I hand the mic over, figuratively speaking, is I'm going to catch Marvel's The Gifted, which is airing on Fox. I think it just started the first episode, and that's the X-Men Marvel TV show.
Okay.
That's not Legion, so I don't expect it to be anywhere near as good as Legion, but it's got enough X-Men characters in it, like mutant characters, Blink, Sunspot, Polaris, that I'm like, okay, that could be intriguing. I'm more intrigued by that than I am. I think the whole... I think those are side characters. I don't think it's specifically about them, but I'm hoping that there's enough action from that, or everything else turns out to be good to kind of keep me compelled to watch it. And I think the reviews have been pretty solid for it. I don't think they've been overwhelmingly great, but they've been good enough that I'm like, okay, maybe that's worth my time, or at least checking out one episode. So hopefully I'll be able to get a chance to check out the pilot, or I guess the first episode for that, and come back next week and talk about it. So
okay.
My throat's getting dry. It's your turn. What you been up to? Tell me everything.
Game of Thrones. I finished Game of Thrones, and it was pretty incredible. I thoroughly enjoyed grinding that out over 2 months. And it's an incredible experience. It's really good.
Oh, what did you think about the Game of Thrones season finale, Gilly?
Thought it was good, you cunt.
Fuck off.
Fuck off. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I guess I don't know how spoiler you're going to get with it, so I'll just throw it out there. Mm-hmm. Probably full spoilers for all of Game of Thrones at this point.
I think I'm the last person on the face of the earth.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were going to try to talk about this probably a month or so ago, if I'm not mistaken, but Hurricane came through, kind of knocked some power out, and
slowed my roll.
That makes it difficult to watch Game of Thrones. Yeah. So, but you've made it. Now you're caught up with the rest of us, and you have to wait God knows how long until the final season comes out. But yeah, man. So kind of what we're, I guess, overall takeaways. What do you think? Anything?
Well, I mean, I literally just watched the finale, and the only thing I can think about is how Sansa just took care of Baelish, man. The whole time, I mean, for like 4 seasons now, I've been, fuck that guy. What is he doing? The whole time. And then I kind of thought maybe he was corrupting Sansa a little bit there at the end, which I guess it's probably what they were going for, because there was this big twist at the end, and I was just, well, you saw me in my recliner. I was kind of losing my shit. I was like, oh shit, and it was great. It was fantastic.
Lady Sansa, I can't believe you would have your sister cut my throat.
Oh man, it was so
I love
good.
you as I loved your mother.
It's so glorious, so good. The caravan. You asked me what my favorite episode of this season was. It's probably the caravan episode. I thought that was pretty awesome. And that twist at the end of the season was pretty great too. I really enjoyed the Samwell arc. I just think it's a cool premise. We're up here at the wall. You're not the best fighter, but you have a thirst for knowledge, and you're good at applying your knowledge and stuff. And go down south, study up, because we're gonna need your help. And so he goes down south to be a maester, and I thought that was pretty compelling. I thought it was good. Good shit, man. It's pretty good shit. And that's to be honest with you, I did download Divinity 2. I got through the first mission with it. Haven't gotten very far, but it seems like it's pretty cool. But other than that, man, that's all I've been pretty much up to. I don't have a really whole lot to talk about. Besides the fact that it's late and I got to go to work in the morning.
I'm not going to bed. I got work in the morning.
That's it. Well, actually, I got to wake up super early and drive your ass to the airport.
Whoa.
So with that, I'm going to go to bed.
Well, we can't go to bed. We got to finish the podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll do that now then. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to Watch, Review, Repeat. We appreciate all the support we get. And if you have any sort of input that you'd like to send us, we would love that. We're available Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, all those sorts of things. Check us out at watchreviewrepeat.com. And our email, if you more specifically would like to know that, is watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com, which is easy to remember. Our intro and outro tracks are graciously provided to us by Kevin MacLeod over at incompetech.com. That track is licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license and is called Mechanolith. If you'd like, leave us a review on iTunes, Google Play, however you're listening to us. That would be most appreciated. Doesn't have to be nice words. Hopefully it is, nice. But we respect all opinions, even if they're wrong. And then that's guess pretty much it. Next week we're covering Blade Runner 2049, which I know I'm excited about. I think Andrew...
I'm pretty stoked. Yeah, I think this might be the most... I think this is the most hyped I've been for a podcast is next week's podcast. I think this is going to be really cool.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen any of the reviews, but
it's tracking pretty good.
It is tracking extremely well. We should, shouldn't be surprised given that it's coming from us from a Denis Villeneuve.
Danny Villeneuve?
It's not coming to us from Doomhall. That's for sure. It's coming to us from Denis Villeneuve, who did Sicario, Prisoners, Arrival. This guy's track record is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. So, so we're really looking forward to that. We'll probably have a little bit more meaty commentary, I think, to offer for something like that.
Sure.
I would hazard to guess. And
guys, it's got cerebral content. You know what I mean? Just real heavy shit to think about. I'm sure.
Yeah.
If it's anything like the first movie.
We won't be recording it from the man cave. I will be halfway across the country when we record that. I'll be hanging out with my bro Hamm in Texas, who might be joining us on the podcast.
Our first guest.
So that'll be fun.
Second guest. Pennywise was the first, I guess.
How dare you forget about me, Georgie?
I'm sorry.
So look forward to that, and that'll do it for us on this fine evening. We hope you guys have an excellent week, and
farewell and good night.